Okay, hey y'all. I have a video I want y'all to watch. Then when I go to do the reading after this, I'll explain it. So I'm gonna record this video, upload it, schedule it, have y'all watching it while I'm doing the next video that comes after this. Just listen real close. It's by Neeks Peek. I'm gonna link her down in the bottom. Please go like her stuff because I don't like using people's stuff without telling everybody to go like it. It's not right. Half of y'all probably already watch her, but this, I know sometimes we don't pay attention to stuff, but if y'all will pay attention to this, then what I'm going to do next will probably make sense. Or if it don't, y'all can tell me. If it does, y'all can. So give me just a minute and I'm getting it up for y'all.
We're going to talk about the big no-nos from the case. Oh no, yep, we're going to do it. Content warning, because this video contains discussions and or depictions of violence, murder, drug use, domestic abuse, and viewer discretion is strongly advised. In the harsh light of judgment, every individual stands accused, perceived as innocent, or as a perpetrator, or at least to have some indicators thereof. You, me, Bethany, Dylan, we all find ourselves on this scale, and we're always being categorized as either pure as the untouched snow or reigning sovereigns in the inferno of hell. Buckle up, bitches. So as soon as the Moscow City Police Department sets up a contract with the University of Idaho, they use the 2015 funding to expand the campus division's scope of law enforcement. We're talking 3 annual emphasis patrols, 3 operations campus officers, and a narcotics detective. And $1 million by $1 million, the university forms a bond with the police department. A campus division officer that you'll be well acquainted with who recently retired is Officer Casey Green, and he's been making headlines concerning the plainclothes operations that happen on the campus, with the students bitching about the haphazard way that these alcohol laws are enforced and the way that citations are handed out. Another officer you'll be well familiar with from not only the case, but also the so-called noise complaints to King Road. Officer Blaker, Sergeant Blaker, Detective Blaker. I don't like judging people by looks, and I want to say, you guys ain't shit for that. Maybe homeboy is a big teddy bear. Say it ain't so. He acted up in the front yard, side of the yard, unconstitutionally searched bags and threatened to turn the fuck up. Oh, okay. Well then. So Sergeant Blaker was also the lead narcotics detective for the Quad Cities Task Force. He was even making headlines, conducting controlled buys, which some people call bust and buys. Buy and bust and bag. Fuck, I only came to just buy some drugs, you old hag. I mean, just kidding. Damn, cops, y'all know I'm just playing.
A controlled buy is a specific type of buy operation, where the entire transaction is closely monitored and controlled by the law enforcement agency. This typically involves an informant or undercover officer purchasing drugs from a suspect under the direct supervision of law enforcement officers. The purpose of a controlled buy is to gather evidence while minimizing risk. A sting operation is a deceptive tactic used by law enforcement to catch a person committing a crime. This usually involves an undercover agent or informant who poses as someone interested in buying illegal goods or services. Sting operations are often used to tackle various types of crimes such as drug dealing, prostitution, illegal gambling, and more. The terms buy, controlled buy, and bust can all be components of a sting operation.
Seriously, the dude was conducting controlled buys right there, just a spittle's distance from, is spittle a word? From the grub truck. You could spit on the locations that were being broadcast on the news as these controlled buy locations. It's possible you've seen a controlled buy outside of McDonald's, inside McDonald's, at your local gas station, near your local grub truck. Who knows just how thin the blue line goes? But you guys get the point. I've long noted that this is a controlled controlled by situation, and I believe that obviously the murders, which occurred possibly even immediately after, who knows, but everybody's noted. My antennas are all the way up. Like, FAA's at my door and wants to know why the hell I have shit in their airspace without going through the proper channels. My bad. I think that makes a lot of sense when you look at the notices that are filed on behalf of the estates of Kaylee, Addie, and her family via her estate filed the same paperwork.
I want to see this guy die. Like, I don't want him breathing any longer. They say, oh, he's living in hell already.
Detectives from the Quad Cities Drug Task Force identified suspects believed to be trafficking fentanyl pills in the Lewiston-Clarkston area. The suspects, based in Lewiston, stored their drugs in a Clarkston storage unit. They were observed making a trip to Spokane, likely for more supplies. Upon their return, they visited their storage unit. A subsequent search warrant led to the discovery of around 900 fentanyl pills in the unit.
Idiotic comments. You really think the FBI was gonna collude with MPD? Like, hey, the FBI, yeah, I don't know, why I have to be the one to relay this news flash, but every single alphabet agency has problems of its own with the DOJ, with the Inspector General, and so on and so forth. And this is like a common misconception about how police steps work anyway, because the guys working in the resident agencies for the FBI anywhere near the Moscow area, or Post Falls, or Coeur d'Alene, or Boise, I always think about Brie Vanderkam when I say Boise, Desperate Housewives reference. So all of those guys are former Moscow police, former Latah County sheriffs, former Coeur d'Alene coppers. It's a network, and a lot of the jobs that the FBI considers for, they obviously like to reference your years and years of police work, and they love it when you love their homeboys, or, as is the norm with the boys club. And actually, most of the jurisdictions that I have like actual personal experience with, and I don't just mean in the way that like I've studied Idaho or Moscow, I mean like actual advocacy, actual paralegal work in those jurisdictions, and they require police officers from any municipal or city police station to work for the city for a certain amount of years before you're even eligible to work for the sheriffs. So certainly working your way up and out is a thing. And even besides that, like I always say, it only takes one dirty, shitty cop, and trust me, there's always more than one, unfortunately. But if we're talking Planet DNA, they're gonna hand over like the Planet DNA. And sometimes people are like conjecturing like, so you don't think it's this DNA on the sheath? Like, no, bro, like other people's theories is actually that it's planted. So I don't think you understand. Like, most of us have faith that it's his DNA on the knife sheath. We suppose that somebody around there has enough brains to actually, plant their target's DNA on murder evidence. But, nothing would surprise me at this point. I'm just saying. Woo! Moving on up to the federal side. That didn't really work out. I tried, though. George and Wheezy, like Paul and, I don't know, Chad. What's another, like, cop name? I'm sorry, Paul and Chad. I don't know why I did y'all like that. Y'all didn't deserve that. You really didn't. It was like all this, cop narrating. I have to, like, be rude to people who don't deserve it. Voila, friends. We can pretty much bring this to an end by saying, yeah, what the fuck? Like, so they hired the lead of the Quad Cities Task Force and lead undercover detective. For many years, Blaker was not pictured in any of the PDFs or reports that his station put out because he was actually doing undercover work. So one more small thing before we move on, but whenever people say that the cops near the murder scene that night were doing undercover work, it's a slight misconception about undercover and unmarked police work. So the cops that were obviously initiating an alcohol event with all the cats outside of the King Rong house that night. That kind of works, I guess. Okay, if they were undercover, they basically would have not ever made that initiation. Basically, look at it like if they were undercover, they would be one of the guys walking around with the cats getting stopped by the police about drinking and all that jazz. Unmarked police are still doing police work. They'll still identify as a police officer, but let's not forget that they're missing an important role, which is being marked for help. And it's a sad fucking thought that if everyone would have escaped and ran out of the house, they wouldn't have even known to trust this car or not, considering, they probably wouldn't know who to trust at this point. It's really fucking sad when the police are unmarked, hidden, and, doing a bunch of fucking stupid traffic stops instead of actually protecting and serving the public. You protect and serve me, but I don't know that you're police unless you want me to know. That's basically an unmarked cop. But it is a distinct and distinguishable difference between undercover work. Jumping back to the moral of the story for the 15th time, I find it odd that the leader of the task force activities and the drug enforcement and drug abatement activities also becomes the lead of this murder case and, of course, our affiant for the arrest of Brian. So I can appreciate those people that are like, I don't think the murders had to do with drugs, but they were college kids. They were probably fucking on drugs. That seems like a more realistic view at this point. No offense to anyone. I've done way too many fucking drugs for me to be able to offend you with that statement. I mean, what? Who said that? A federal agency around that won't tell you that they see undercover work as crucial in their repertoire of ways to take down criminals and quote unquote solve crime. So where people have been suspect about informant information that the defense has been requesting and for which I've conjectured is often at issue concerning all of the discovery that has been sealed, and that's not been specifically about the DNA. The DNA has always been fairly open. We can see a lot of those motions. It's other ones outside of that we've seen often be sealed and then their exhibits sealed as well. I conjecture that this has to do with the informant. And guess what? Chicken butt. Just kidding. Alright, so the FBI and all of those other jazzy alphabet agencies investigate murder through DOJ guidelines. And what does the DOJ say about drug hits and the type of murders that occur in relation thereto or thereof? I don't know. I'm sleepy. I mean, just kidding. I totally English. So according to the DOJ, the investigative reality is that most drug-related homicides are eventually solved through intelligence and or informant information. Witnesses in homicide investigations are generally reluctant to get involved. It cites this reluctance as active resistance during the drug-related murder investigation. The only exception is the murder of police officers and innocent civilians. So in other words, it's saying that if someone blatantly kills a marked police officer or innocent civilians, many people speak out and are willing to become informants in the case. But where it concerns crime syndicates, we see that things are much different. Kind of like this case where we have a girl going, I don't want to come and testify. And where we hear Bill himself over and over again talk about the vulnerability of his witnesses, their fear about testifying. And answer me this, I mean, if they're testifying against him and they believe he did it, shouldn't they fear not testifying? Good question. You can't fucking tell yourself good question. Oh. Further, they recommend setting up a task force for this type of investigation due to the particular scale. And remember when everyone is saying, you know, this crime is this big thing? Sorry if I'm repeat girl on this shit, but come on. They were like, these crimes, we called in, you know, the best of the best and had to contact the FBI and whatnot. But lo and behold, we found a knife sheath right under the victim. And guess what? It had a DNA lead right to the suspect. Okay, they needed millions of dollars and bunch of donations for that. Pretty exciting story, isn't it? So the mission of this team, according to DOJ, is that it needs to be able to reasonably mitigate the interstate and different jurisdictional issues that will come of these drug hits, as I'll call them for now. Establishing intelligence liaisons and narcotic enforcement units, as well as outside agencies like the Indiana police who claim, you know, we didn't know. He just kept running up behind me though. You're driving too close, bro. Ah! I tried that. I must be stopped. So get this, you know, for everyone who thinks controlled buys aren't even a thing. The DOJ is like, don't worry, you guys. Many of the arrested offenders are willing to make deals. So these drug lords who they're allegedly taking down are willing to make the deal and, you know, roll on the murderer. They elect to cooperate with authorities and avoid extended jail time. Yep, don't you know? Their willingness to cooperate presents homicide detectives with an effective strategy for developing criminal informants. And loop-de-doo, drug-related homicide investigations. Specific offenders who've been identified as witnesses in the drug slings can be targeted with a narcotics buy operation in order to force their cooperation in the case. Or a particular neighborhood can be targeted with a buy and bust operation with the objective of snaring potential witnesses to the drug sling. So all of those cases that I conjecture are being protected through many of those seals that we interpreted in previous episodes would be protecting cases like this, where they are actively trying to entrap someone who they believe knows about the murders, but it might actually be drug crimes that this person's going to come down for. Protecting ongoing operations. Again, the Idaho 4 crimes are not ongoing. The trial is ongoing, but it's shifted now from the law enforcement phase and into prosecution's hands. Now, that doesn't mean that it won't slip right back, because that has and will happen again. But you get my drift. Oh, anyway, sometimes I suck at explaining shit. Thanks for trying. Woo-doo. Okay, so DOJ separates into 4 categories drug hits. Okay, so what it calls a drug hit is, according to them, often going to be solved by intelligence information, narcotics buy operations, buy and bust operations, and informant information. Interpersonal drug disputes, which it considers another type of category to, you know, that fucking category that no one wants to fall into. Buy and bust operations, informant information, and narcotics buy operations. Murder of innocent bystanders, as the third type, would often offer reward money, offer different Crime Stoppers programs, lots of use of media and press, communities activities, possibly a buy and bust operation where they can, and informant information. But again, when there's a murder of innocent bystanders, there's a lot less informant information to go around. Whereas per a syndicate, many times informants are literally the only evidence that cops are able to obtain about particular syndicates come from the testimony of people who have been criminals inside of them. It's some bitch ass shit, but you know, that's the way it works. Don't become an informant. Don't work for police. Don't do their job for them. So we see the 4th type is drug assassinations, and intelligence again is their number 1 there. But look at that. They don't just use buy and bust and informant. We actually bring out all of the ingredients here. Utilize the use of media and press, intelligence operations, electronics eavesdropping, And there's even further discussion here about the leeway that, ironically, it literally states, fucking quote, ironically, unquote. Well, actually, let's requote that because I'm gonna finish. Ironically, drug-related homicides, which are difficult cases to solve, are particularly amenable to exceptional means clearance due to the continuity and violent nature of drug criminal enterprise. However, in order to effectively utilize the method of crime clearance, the agency must invest a necessary time and resources into their phase 1 and phase 2 of the drug-related homicide investigation. Now, ironically, fucking phase 1 is actually collecting and processing the crime scene.
Keeping information close to your chest. Are you glad that you did that, and were you worried about tipping the suspect off?
I will 100% stand behind the way that we handled this investigation, and this all started from day one.
Oblivious to their potential significance. As the vehicle rumbled to life, a gust of wind swept across the town square. A cloud of dust, carrying the micro-thin artifacts, rose from the mattresses and dispersed into the wind, lost to the world forever.
The Moscow City Police Department's press release stated that they seized 3 dumpsters related to the crime. However, it did not clarify why the trash bins were not removed from the road to prevent them from being picked up in the first place, despite having 59 officers assigned to the case.
But here, of course, broken fucking record. I don't understand. It makes me feel like literally nothing has evolved since like the Milford experiment. The Milford experiment proved that like people are willing to give you enough electricity through your body if directed to by some random person in a uniform. Legit an actor in a uniform who has been instructed, the participants been instructed that these amounts of voltage will actually kill the person who they could hear yelling in pain, and they fucking kept zapping their ass because people are willing to go to extreme lengths for authority or just for a uniform. A case I got into last year was actually about the police allowing and handing, the first responders in the ambulance actually gave a midwife 2 sets of shears which were not meant for episiotomies in order to attempt like an impromptu episiotomy, and she broke the first pair and they gave her another one. And dudes are like later forced to testify in the case, and they're like, we didn't know who she was, we thought she was a nurse. But yeah, I mean, the amount of corruption here, it makes you feel like we haven't come very far at all. Because how in the fuck is it not just 10,000 more times logical to see that? I'm just gonna say, like, it's almost impossible for me to believe that raising this as an incompetence issue is even possible, because I'm not even being fucking dramatic. I'm not sure that level of incompetence exists. Like, Keystone would have done a better job than this. So speaking of doing controlled buys and operations in the area, one of the areas that Kohlberger drove to prior to allegedly being near Moscow, or at least picking up the same tower as would give coverage to the King Road house, he drives to Clarkston. And Clarkston this year had a bust around the anniversary of the crimes. And guess what? It had a large bust that made headlines. I want to say it was like within a week, but I'm not looking at it right now. But pretty damn close. Enough that I was like, yo. And hopefully you're looking at it right now if the production of this video went right. Or maybe I'm editing this part out. More on the categorization by the Department of Justice, what they call number 1 is drug hits. Premeditated murders intended to eliminate competition to enforce control over members of cartel or drug groups are drug hits. Or a drug hit victim may also be murdered because he provided information to police authorities. Okay, so all informant deaths are considered drug hits to the DOJ. The victim may have been murdered because he provided information or was a potential witness in a drug prosecution and was considered a risk to the group. And in that first category falls those who are involved in potential ripoffs leading to their death, basically an armed robbery, if you will. Number 2, interpersonal drug disputes, homicides that occur spontaneously, usually without any premeditation. These often result due to the interpersonal drug disputes between one party and another with no particular planning, so otherwise sort of like a crime of passion within the crime syndicate or group. Now, number 3, they categorize as murder of innocent bystanders. Drug-related homicides also include the murder of innocent civilians and bystanders, including those caught in shooting crossfire or hit by random shots fired between rival gangs or participants. The number of civilian casualties, especially within the inner cities, dramatically increases. Now, number 4, we've actually conjectured a lot about, which is a drug assassination. Premeditated murders directed towards government officials, law enforcement personnel, or against civilians are considered drug assassinations. Drug assassinations. Such attacks are actually a form of terrorism and are intended to discourage active drug enforcement policies and to create the impression that the drug groups or cartels are as powerful as the authorities. Yes, you and your authorities are powerful to be sure, but you are not all powerful. But to get a little more specific, that is the rarer of those 4 types.
This case is complicated. I think it's going to absorb the efforts of all the attorneys that are standing before you right now, just on the issue of guilt.